Now, we have a great session lined up today, and it's a pleasure to welcome you all to our ConnecTALKS session, Culture and Meaning of Behaviour. Now, we are thrilled to have Mike Van Der Vijver of Mind Meeting joining us during Connections Luxury Seoul. Mike is a specialist meeting designer and international consultant with 25 years of experience, working all over the globe, bringing cultures together in unique and experiential ways. So I think we can all agree we're in very good hands for this next hour. So many of you have already met Mike as well yesterday, where he ran some really interesting sessions in the morning and has been observing over the last couple of days and finding some very unique and interesting things indeed. And what you have experienced yesterday is what will be act as the foundations for today's session as well. So it's my pleasure to introduce Mike up onto the stage, and he's going to share a little bit more and take it away. Thank you, Mike.
So, I visit my sister-in-law for a dinner, and I come in, and she looks at me, and she says to me, "You really like that sweater, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I do. Yeah, thank you." And then we have dinner, and I make nothing of it. You must know as a background that my wife, and therefore also my sister-in-law, they're from Taiwan. So that's where I live most of the time. Taiwan's quite close to Korea, and they're part of a sort of an East Asian culture cluster, where a lot of the communications are similar amongst one another. So, when we get home, my wife says to me, "Can you give me that sweater, please? I'm going to wash it." And I'm really surprised by that immediate action on her part. So what happened when I came in was that my sister-in-law had seen that I'd been wearing that sweater for 3 consecutive days already, and therefore what she said to me was, "You need to wash that thing." Now, one of the things about culture is that people are able to create an infinite variety of behaviors. And some of those behaviors are easy to understand, and they fit within your realm of what you understand and what you can place and what you can easily work with, and some other things baffle you. I lived in Italy for 30 years, and even after 30 years, the Italians were capable of baffling me again every single day, one after the other. Now, I must admit, that was Naples, which is Italy to the second degree, but still. So my sister-in-law, in a very kind way, reminded me that it was time for me to wash my sweater. But what she said, I took it as a compliment. You like that sweater. In fact, probably I like it as well, yeah? So I totally misunderstood her, and that's after 40 years of experience in dealing with international situations and working with people and cultural differences. Today I'm going to take you into this realm of cultural similarities and differences, and I'd like to underline the fact that what you see is behavior. You see people behave. You see people doing things. You hear them say things. You see them doing things. And very often, what they say and what they do is not what you get. What they say and what they do to them means something, and to you may mean something else. And the other way around, of course. What you do will mean something to you, but it may mean something totally different from somebody who comes from another culture. And I'm going to explore that a bit, and I'm going to give you a bit of background as to where all of this comes from. So let me ask you a question about yesterday. Some of you visited the session I was in yesterday, right? A couple of you are here. Yeah. Susan, yeah, you were there. Do you recall what we did with the chairs? Yeah, so we had different types of chairs in the room. And Susan, which one did I ask you to sit on? Right. Well, actually, it's nice that you remember that, because it wasn't nicer. It was different. It was different, yeah. So there were 3 types of chairs in the room. The majority of the chairs were all the same, and they were average. There was one chair which was a bit smaller, and it had different kind of tapestry on it, and the seat was lower, so it looked less important. And there was another chair which looked different, but it looked more important. There was a nice cushion in it, and it looked like, you know, it would have been my chair as the presenter of the session. So what I did, as a matter of fact, is I asked people to take those chairs, and when they came in, everybody sat at the ordinary chairs immediately, right? But then I asked somebody, could you please sit in that chair? And I indicated which one I liked. And then just that as an experiment, and then I asked people, how embarrassing was it, do you think, that I asked that person to sit in that chair? And then I asked people to choose a little Lego man and to express on a scale from 1 to 10 how embarrassing that was. So in Susan's session, you go from the right, which is 0, which is not embarrassing at all, to the left, which is very, very totally embarrassing. You should never have done this. This was the worst faux pas that you could have committed. Okay? Good. Now, this is the one on the right, that's Susan's little Lego man. The one in the middle is at a 6, and that is the Lego man of the Korean person who was together with Susan. Okay? So, in the eyes of Susan, what I asked her was a totally normal thing. In fact, Susan, I recall what you said. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said, well, you just asked me to sit there, and I did. Right? Yeah. Can you stand up and just show everybody? Yeah. He's not lying. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that confirmation. Good. So, in the eyes of Susan, it was a totally normal thing. In the eye of her Korean host, what happened was I asked her something which was pretty much embarrassing, because I asked her to sit in a chair that looked significantly less important than the other chairs. Okay, I'll talk more about embarrassment in a second. Here's another example of a similar situation, but now I asked one of the Korean guests to sit in the high-end chair. Okay? And this is how the group responded. There were 4 people in that little group. This is how they responded to that request. Now, interestingly, you see, there's one person that voted a 1, so this is totally not embarrassing. And there's one person voting a 10, and there's 2 people at a 3 or a 4, right? Good. Now, let me start with the person who voted a 1. That was you, Vanita, right? Okay, can you still tell us why you voted a 1? Yeah. Yeah, it was a different chair. It was honorable to be asked to sit there, right? That's what Vanita just told us. Now, the 2 people in the middle there, they're 2, let's just say, generally speaking, they're 2 other Westerners. Okay? So they thought, yeah, well, maybe slightly embarrassing because you asked the person to stand up and go and sit somewhere else. The Pikachu on the left is the very kind Korean girl who I asked to sit in a nice chair. And her first reaction when I asked her to do that was even more telling than the 10 of her Pikachu, which was, yeah, she giggled in total embarrassment. So the same thing asked to different people from different parts of the world immediately produce, within literally 1-2 seconds, produce a totally different interpretation of what that little thing means. So it's a small experiment, and it shows how important embarrassment is in East Asian societies, including South Korea. It is probably even more important as a social thing in Japan, and it's also very important in China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Southeast Asia in general. But Korea and Japan by far the strongest. Embarrassment is related to issues of face, and I've been told if I pronounce it correctly for my Korean audience, which are all a bit more in the back, and I'll say a couple of words about that in a second as well, is Chaemyeon. Is that correct? Is that the correct pronunciation? It's face. Yeah? Face it's what we in the West would understand as people's social ego. It includes who you are, but it also includes what family you come from, what background, what university or school you have attended, what people you know, your total social network. And face, getting face, losing face, gaining face, giving face, is a vital part of social life. And this is something that people in the West are aware of only to a very limited extent. So the whole notion of embarrassment, shame in front of other people, in the West does not pilot our behavior. In East Asia, it does, and it does to a very large extent. Now, again, I'll get to what that means for doing business in a second, but you can immediately see how, even in such a simple situation, how this has a big impact on what people think and what people feel. You know, you didn't, Susan, you didn't feel anything in particular. You just went there and sat there. The Korean girl, for a moment, she was totally embarrassed. And then she regained her composure and she sat there and it was okay. But there was this brief moment of feeling lost. Now, this notion of feeling lost in situations where certain communicative things happen is very hard to understand for Westerners, and it's equally difficult for people from East Asia to understand how on earth these people can be so comfortable and so easygoing in public situations. Are they not worried about face? Don't they think it is rude, as I heard yesterday in one of the sessions? Don't you think it is rude to ask a person in public a question? We talked about asking questions in sessions, such as at university, where in most Western countries, it's just enough for a student to raise their hand in the middle of a lecture and then ask your question. Now, we talked about this, and again, one of the Korean participants said, but that's rude. It's rude to do that, and it's rude in two ways. First of all, it's rude towards the professor, because if you ask a question in the middle of the explanation, you imply, and imply is an important word here, you imply that he hasn't explained it clearly. That's rude. Equally, it's rude towards yourself, because if you ask a question, it implies that you haven't understood, you're daft. Right? So, two very good reasons for not asking questions in public. To the Western mind, this is alien. You're just curious, you want to know something else, you want to know more. And so you ask a question, right? Nothing to it, but there's a lot to it in cultures which are called high context. And again, I'll return to that later on. You've got high context cultures, you've got low context cultures. The chair is part of the context. And the context influences how people communicate, what they see, what they find relevant, and how that pilots their behavior. Okay, now, where does this all come from? Okay, let me give you just a brief insight in culture with this slide. Now, of course, we're all human beings, right? So there's a lot of things that we have in common. By far, the majority of things we have in common. We all breathe, we all need to eat, we all need to procreate, we're biological beings, and we are social beings. So you can't become a human unless you grow up together with other humans. Good, let me ask you a question. I can see that, could the Korean people in the audience, could you raise your hands, please? Okay, the Western people, could you turn around? Could you leave your hand up? All right. Now, do you see what happened in this room? Yeah? Very modestly, all of the Korean people, hoping that I wouldn't ask them a question, of course, because that would be rude, are sitting in the back. They're our hosts, which is literally, again, something that people said yesterday. You are my guest. You need to do the experience. Yeah? I'm your host. I'm here to make sure that while you do the experience, you're good, you won't hurt yourself, and that you're being looked after. I don't necessarily have to do the experience together with you. As long as you do it, we're fine. Okay? How different from what would happen in a Latin country, for instance. If you go to Latin America, everybody would be dying to do it together, immediately. Right? So all of these things work out in very subtle ways, and often we don't notice them. Now, why is that the case? As I said, we inherit a part which is the dark base of the triangle there, which is common to all human beings. There's a lot of things that we have in common, and it's by far the biggest chunk. We also have things in common with other species, but that's my biology background coming through. We'll not talk about that. Then at the top, you see a part of people's being which is inherited. So you happen to be the combination of genetic material that comes from your father and your mother, and that's part of who you are. But most of that is individually learned. For instance, if you have been scratched by a cat when you're small, you may hate cats the rest of your life. If you're really small, from there on, you develop a phobia of cats, or you develop a phobia of something else, I don't know. But you have a number of experiences that you learn as an individual at an early age, and they are also part of who you are. Now, let me ask you a different question. Again, the people in the back, the Korean people. Who of you has children? Raise your hands, please. Okay, good. Can you shout out, what language are you teaching your child? Korean, right? Yeah. Because if you don't teach them Koreans, how would they manage to get on in life? Right? Good. Somebody who has children, somebody here. Yeah, Susan, again, yeah. Okay. What language did you teach your child? English, logically, yeah? Because that's what's necessary in the surroundings. You need to teach your child English because it grows up in an English environment. Okay. We don't even ask ourselves the question, what language am I going to teach my child? Unless you're in a mixed marriage. Okay? You automatically, if your child is from Korean parents, grows up in Korea, you teach them Korean. That is the middle bit there. The middle bit is everything that we need to teach our children. Parents start doing it, grandparents continue, school, peers, everybody teaches you how to become, let's call it a functional part of society. Somebody who knows what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. And then you can deviate individually, based on the tip of the triangle, from what is appropriate and inappropriate in situations that you think you want to question. But you know what is appropriate and inappropriate. That is culture. And that is what we teach our children, and most of that we teach our children tacitly. We don't mention, okay, I'm from the Netherlands, in order to become a good Dutch person, I say to my child, what you need to know is, here it is. Okay, today I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are the 10 things that you really need to know if you want to function in Dutch society. Of course, it doesn't work that way. The way it works is, as a Dutch parent, when my child does something that I think is not appropriate, I say to them, do you do that at home as well? Do you want to do that every day? So my way of challenging inappropriate behavior as a Dutch father is asking them a question. Now there's no other Dutch, there's one Dutch person. Frans, where are you? Yeah. You recognize this, Frans? Yeah. So our way of correcting our children is by challenging what they're doing by means of letting them reflect on what they're doing and then deciding whether they think it's appropriate or not, right? Okay, but there's a strong pressure from the parents to make them understand that this right now was not appropriate. So think about that. That's very typically Dutch. And as a result of that, Dutch people have opinions on everything. Especially on things that they know nothing about. Which is really amazing. Now that I live abroad and I go back to the Netherlands and I listen to young Dutch people, they really have an opinion on anything. And I find it amazing. I sit on the train from the airport back home, and I hear them talking, and the only thing they say is, well, the professor this, and that's of course really stupid, and my mother that, and that's of course completely daft, and my father this, and he's a complete idiot. And this is how their lives are shaped. They're shaped around their personal opinions. Very typically Dutch. Very different from what I hear when I sit in trains elsewhere, if I understand the language. Okay, now let's get into that cultural programming for a second, okay? And I'd like to conduct a short experiment with you. Can I divide the group along this line, more or less, into the people on this side and the people on that side, okay? Yeah, thank you, Jean-Pierre, you're part of that side, good. Now, people on this side, could you all close your eyes? And don't cheat, yeah? Close your eyes. You guys, the other ones, closely watch the screen. Okay, thank you. The people who have their eyes closed, open your eyes. Now the others, please close your eyes. Okay, here we go. The others that have their eyes open, closely watch the screen. Good, thank you. You can now all open your eyes, and I'm going to show you another picture. Watch the screen. All right. In this last picture, what did you see? Yuri, what did you see? The last picture that I showed. Sorry. The last one. Sorry. What did you see? What did you see? You saw a rat. Yeah? Okay. Wait. I'll come to you in a second. Sam, what did you see? You saw a face. An old man's face. Jean-Pierre, you saw a face. A bald man's face, yeah? Somebody in the back? Yeah, so you're all nodding. You all saw a bald man's face, right? Okay, good. What did you see?
Face.
You saw a face, and you had your eyes closed the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. What did you see? You saw a face. Or you saw a rat. Yeah, okay. What did you see? A rat. A rat, okay. So this picture here, the people over here see a rat, and the people over there, they see a face. Okay? Now, the explanation, I already gave it away somewhat by being nervous and clicking on the clicker. But this last picture is the one in the middle. The left-hand picture is what I showed you guys first. And the right-hand picture is what I showed you guys first. So consistently, all of these people here, when I said, what did you see? You all nodded, yeah, that's a man, a bald man, Jean-Pierre even said. And all of you said, no, that's a rat. Now suppose I hadn't shown you this picture. And you are looking at the world like this. What is this? What is it? Is it a man or is it a rat? Now that is cultural programming. In a space of 2 seconds, I have managed to program this part, this half of the world, to see something which this half of the world would never be able to see. And the other way around. Okay? And it took me 2 seconds. Can you imagine what 10, 15, 20, 30 years of cultural programming does to the human mind now? And how we can see the world totally differently, depending on what our parents teach us, what our school teachers teach us, what our university professors teach us, what our peers teach us, what the media around us teach us, and so on and so forth. This is extremely powerful. Now, returning to the triangle, of course there's the base of what we all have in common. And there's the bit which, particularly in the West, we find very important, which is what each of us represents individually. But in the middle, there's a big chunk of what we learn because we happen to be born in that particular place. And I can tell you stories about mixed marriages and people who grow up between different cultures. I mean, you, Vanita, you're a good example. You're half Chinese, half Indian, so you've got that man and that mouse within your mind, both somewhere, yeah? And you need to juggle it, and you need to make sure that you understand, this time round, what am I looking at? Am I looking at something that comes from my dad or something that comes from my mum? Am I looking at something that is a mouse or something that is a man? Okay? Now, let's move to what all of this means when you need to start doing business together. And let me check where I am in my notes. Yes, so the relevance of this is when you do business together and you need to understand one another, do you really understand what the other person is saying? Do you really understand what the meaning of the behavior is that you're seeing? So I already mentioned the example of the issue of asking a question in public. Now, I gave the example, we are witness of the example that in this room, for safety reasons, most of the Korean people sit in the back half. For other reasons, most of the people who are guests here, you've chosen to sit relatively in the front. This is typical. One of the things that I do is, as Sam said, I design meeting programs. So one of the things I constantly see happening is questions and answers during conferences. Okay? So the typical conference is where mostly run by Western organizations, and they say, okay, so we have a speaker and then we need Q&A. And Q&A is an opportunity for people to ask questions. And that opportunity to ask questions, especially for Americans, is a great way of showing who you are and how good you are. So you stand up and you try to ask a clever question. For people from East Asia, it is a small passage towards hell. It is the moment where you might be put on the spot, and that's not what you want. The last thing you want is to be put on the spot in public. And you will never, ever volunteer to put yourself on the spot in public. So are you going to ask a question? Of course not. It's a completely ludicrous idea. It's dangerous to stand up and ask a question. So, Western mind, this is an opportunity to know more. Eastern mind, this is a really dangerous situation, which if I can, I will do anything to avoid. So let's start by sitting in the back. Because you never know. Right? Again, same situation, same kind of potential for both sides, but a totally different perception of what that situation means. And therefore, it results in totally different behavior. We talked yesterday briefly about, in one of the sessions, about how do you communicate with somebody who's more important than you are. And as an extreme example, we took, suppose you meet the president, okay? So this was wonderful. There were just 4 of us in that group, and I asked one of the Korean participants to imagine that he was meeting the president. And that very idea already raised his stress levels to, something like, I saw the adrenaline and the cortisol flowing through his veins. And then I simply asked, so what would you do? And you were there. So he was he remained like this. And I asked, would you shake hands? Not if he doesn't do it first. Would you make eye contact? Not if he doesn't do it first. So, in any kind of communication in societies which are generally quite hierarchical, such as East Asian societies, if you want to communicate, the prerogative for communication is with the most important person. And everybody knows who the most important person is. So you leave it to that person. Okay? And if you're asked something, then you give an answer. But you're not going to volunteer your communications. Again, for some Western countries are more hierarchical than others. But particularly in Anglo-Saxon countries, which tend to be quite low on hierarchy, this is weird. Why wouldn't you want to communicate? Why wouldn't you want to say hi? You can say hi to the president. In the Netherlands, which is also very low on context and low on hierarchy. Well, the Queen needs to go to the bathroom as well, So she's just a human being, and as a human being, we can interact. Right, but not if you come from high hierarchy. This is a human being who comes from another part of society. Actually, he comes from Mars. And the Martians dominate Earth, for our understanding. So you don't volunteer communications. This becomes important in business because maybe you send an email, another thing we talked about yesterday in one of the sessions, and that email goes unanswered for a while, or sometimes for a long time. Anybody here who has had dealings with East Asians had that experience? Raise your hands if you have. Yeah. Yeah, Sam, yeah. Can you tell us the story? Have you got the mic there? You happen to have the mic, so I give him the floor, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it's just certain times when you're trying to do, well, particularly I guess in my role is negotiating and trying to sort out venues or hotels or building programs together. You'll have a conversation and you may not hear anything. And then when I come in person, completely different story. And then suddenly everything comes to life again. So it was from a communication on an email to in person was completely different.
Yeah. And of course, the difference is that when we meet face-to-face, when we meet in person, I can gauge your reactions. I can gauge your non-verbal communications. I can see where we're going in the conversation. So it feels much safer. Email, you commit. You need to commit, so you need to be absolutely 100% sure that what you're going to write is correct and that your boss agrees and that maybe the boss of your boss agrees. And if that hasn't been ascertained, you're not going to answer the email because you expose yourself to having said something which may have to be corrected subsequently. That's not good communications. Good communications is making sure that you've got all the data and all the necessary information correctly, and then you answer. In the Netherlands, you shoot an email, you immediately get an answer, for instance, say, well, questions 2 and 3 I don't know. Question 1 I'll ask my boss. Question 4 I can answer for you. Right? Which would be totally inappropriate in many other parts of the world. Okay, now let's explore this a bit for an issue which is relevant for all of you. And I'd like everybody to get up and perhaps in the middle, or if it's easier, in the aisles, could you make groups of 3 or 4, and I'd like you to make what I would call monocultural groups. And then monocultural in this case means the guests, the connections guests from abroad, you are together, and the other groups are groups with just our Korean hosts. So could you make groups of 3 and 4 like that? 3 or 4 Korean people together and 3 or 4 Western guests or non-Korean guests together. That looks good, thank you. Excellent. Now, okay, good. Here is what I would like you to do. In the Korean groups, could you pinpoint what you think are the strengths of Korea in luxury travel? So come up in maybe 3 minutes or so, come up with what you think are the strengths of Korea as a destination for luxury travel. Okay? Can you tell me and shout out, yes, I've understood the question, yes? Yeah, not the Westerners, the other ones. Yes. Yeah? In the back? Yes? Okay, good. Here in front, I'd like you to tackle a slightly different question. For luxury travel, what do you expect from a destination? Okay? Clear? Good. So take 3 to 4 minutes to do this, and then we'll hear back from the groups. All right, I'd like you to start drawing your conclusions, and also importantly, in each little group, make sure you have a spokesperson. So who can speak on behalf of the group? Make sure you designate that now. Decide who is your spokesperson. Okay? Good. Sam?
Hello, Mike.
Are you with me in the back there?
I'm here at the back.
Good.
Okay, everyone.
Could we hear from the group of the 4 ladies over there?
Okay, I'm coming over here.
Yeah,
We're coming to you first.
You're sitting. you better keep standing. Stand up. Stand up.
Okay, everyone. So we're going to be coming over here first. Who would like to share their thoughts? Do we have a volunteer?
So, what is the strength of Korea as a destination? It's on.
That was very easy question, actually.
Okay, good.
Yeah, because we have many strengths about Korea, but your question was what is our strength
Yeah,
in Korea
Yeah.
in luxury industry?
yeah.
So of course beauty.
Beauty.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Seriously, everyone is actually looking for here. Even if yesterday I had a meeting with a lot of ladies, doesn't matter with their ages, 20 to 30s. I don't know about your ages, but every woman here, we're talking about cosmetics and beauties. Where can I buy? What kind of that? And then that means we Korean look old, beautiful, right? So yeah, that's all we are thinking.
Thank you very
Good.
much.
Now, wait a second. I'd like to hear from the Western people on a scale. Again, this is 0. This is 10. How unexpected was this answer for you? So it's unexpected. Great. See cultural differences in place? Yeah. If I had asked the question in Taiwan, they would have come up with the same answer. Ask my wife tonight. She'll be there. Check. Okay. Sam, another group.
Okay, I'm coming over here to you lucky people. Who would like to share?
Okay, hi, I'm Sylvie from Korea House. Actually, our conclusion is about culture because back then Korea is kind of like they don't have much information through media, but these days they have a kind of image by themselves by movies or drama. So the strength is they just come and see and come and enjoy. So that's why it's a strength part to come to Korea, and they have unique experience. So that's why we picked up our keyword is culture. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. And maybe I can add something to that, because if I understand you correctly, when you say culture, culture for Western people means old stuff, right? Now, it doesn't in East Asia. Culture is also K-pop. Culture is their movie culture. Culture is the fusion food culture. It's very much about the way in which the traditional roots of Korean identity translate into something which has been transformed into something modern. That is the Asian notion of culture. Very different. Yeah? So great, thank you. Sam, where are you? Yeah, good. Next group.
I'm coming over here. Jamie is the boss. Here we go.
Hello. I thought for Koreans, because with the 5,000 years of history, that we have a group of all these amazing, hardworking employees, or the hoteliers, and whichever you want to call, you will always get hold of us 24/7. I mean, it's not something to brag, but we're known for hardworking, and in terms of dealing with the global clients, it's easy and is very fast responding from the Korean side. And also, your 5,000 of experience, like you said, it's not an old, it's actually a collective of experiences for culture, food, and whatever you call it. We have everything from the high tech to you want to go all the way to the culture experience. We are able to offer and let you experience the true side of Korea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is a really nice one, because here you're mixing up similarity and difference. Who in the West has WhatsApp groups with their clients which are on 24/7? Okay, you do. How many do you have for each client on average? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, my wife recently had a conference with, and that was a national Taiwanese conference. She had 60 different WhatsApp groups for that one event with different client representative groups. Yeah? That's what she's referring to. That level of detail, that level of attention, that level of dedication, which again, in the Netherlands, try reaching somebody after 5. If you're lucky, Yeah, no such thing in Korea, Japan, Taiwan, China. It's not a matter of being lucky. They're there, 24 hours, always. Good. Let's hear from some expectations from the Western people. Sam, yeah.
I'm going to come over here. Who would like to speak from this group?
Hi. Well, the question was, what do we expect from a destination to be considered luxury, or us as luxury travel planners, what we seek to find? I would say the first thing would be accommodation. I mean, when you are doing luxury, you expect to find a luxury accommodation, whatever that is. Could be a very nice, hotel or villa or whatever. But then what goes hand in hand with this is the service, is the level of service, the attention to detail, the personalized service, and the passion for your work that has to show. Then the part...
Okay, wait, that's good. Thank you. Like to hear from some other group. Yeah, good. There's somebody in the back there, Sam.
Okay,
like to
here we
speak.
come.
Yeah.
Deborah.
I'll just piggyback on what Sava said. Basically, he mentioned accommodation and also service. But one of the true luxuries, and all of my clients are 100% from North America, well, U.S., not Canada or Mexico, is exclusive access. That's generally where luxury begins. Because accommodations, if you're looking at accommodations, there's a baseline of what luxury is, but not every accommodation is 4 stars, 5 stars, because in some destinations, it's more of saying, what you can do here, you can't do anywhere else. And to some people, that's a luxury.
Yeah.
And that's what they're looking for.
Great.
Culturally, local, immersive activities that's not available to everyone else.
Yeah. Sam, down here. Thank you,
Okay,
Deborah.
here we come. Thank you very much. This group, who would like to speak? Is it you? You're on the spot now.
Well, I'm going to kind of go off of Savas's and Deb's, because luxury is technically relative. Because luxury to one person could mean, as simple as having a 4-star hotel, whereas luxury to another means it has to be elite. I have to know everything in advance. Everything has to be laid out for me. I have to be able to just walk in and everything just be completely done for me. As I tell people all the time, the true luxury of life is communication. Communication means different things to different people, but the basis of the word means the same no matter what culture, no matter what area of the world that you're in. It's the same.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. But if I may say, from a cultural viewpoint, that's a very individualistic way of looking at luxury, which is fundamentally different from how, from India onwards, I would say, people look at luxury, where you're not looking for the individual experience. You're looking for luxury experience in a group. Am I right, Vanita? Yeah. So really nice to see the unexpected answer from the Koreans, and this unexpected answer from a cultural viewpoint from a typical Western mind, in this case US, or a group of people which was US dominated. I know. Yeah. For the French, it's of course different. Of course it's different for the French, because it's always different for the French, and that is also part of culture. Good. Could you please sit down, because I need to arrive at my conclusions, because time is up. Cultural differences are an infinite source to me, of lessons, and a lot of lessons in humility. I went to live in Taiwan at a relatively advanced age, and suddenly I find myself to be an illiterate person again. I can't read, I can't write, I don't understand the people around me. Very humiliating and humbling, very good at my age. If you think you've achieved something, go and live in a country where you don't know the language, and you learn a couple of new things about yourself. I'd like to conclude with, I'll skip this, but if you want to know more about the difference between high context and low context, I'll be around the rest of the day, ask me. But here are 3 things which I call the intercultural toolbox. And this is just a couple of very basic things which relate to that initial idea we started with. You see the behavior, never be sure that you know what it means, particularly if it puzzles you. Don't jump to the conclusion that you understand what the behavior means. Question the meaning. Go looking for an explanation with people who might know more than you about the particular culture. So often, people from different cultures, because they come from such a different background, they severely annoy us or they incredibly enchant us and delight us. Strong emotions are related to experiences of cultural difference, such as the sheer beauty of this garden for the Western mind. It is almost impossible to grasp. Yeah? But equally, if driving in Italy, as a nice example, is equally very difficult to grasp as a cultural experience. So emotions put you on the track of probably culture is at stake. Then try to understand the meaning of the behavior. So try to understand the rationale. What is the reason why people do these strange things? Why do the Italians drive like madmen? Yeah? Well, because they're uptight and they think that the car is a kind of suit. In the morning, they dress their car and they just run around in it. So if you understand where the behavior comes from, it's a lot less disturbing. It's got nothing to do with you. It's got nothing to do with that person. It is what they've been culturally programmed to do. And therefore, it comes natural to them. Okay, if it comes natural to them, I need to find a way around it. And the real most important one is don't judge. Even if you think that something is annoying, if you don't understand it, don't judge because people feel the judgment. Everybody around the world feels it when you have a negative judgment. And that will hamper your relationship development severely. Now, with connections, one of the things we try to do is to make sure that that relationship gets going in a safe and interesting way right away. So we try to preempt part of what you need to do in business anyway, which is build a relationship of trust. You get the first bit of that, the rest you will need to do yourself. And if you get some hitches along the way, again, don't judge. Try to understand what's behind it and make the most of it, and most of all, enjoy it, because the world is an infinitely varied place, and we need diversity to understand the truth, and we need diversity to understand tolerance and respect. So it's up to all of us to do that, and with that, I'm handing back to Sam. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Wow. What a fascinating session indeed. I hope everyone had a really good and some amazing insights and a lot of fun too. Another round of applause for Mike. Thank you very much. And if you need any more further questions or points, Mike's here for the whole rest of the day tonight as well. So do pick his brains for all his valuable insights. Some really interesting conversations will take place after too.